Not all humans are built the same. Have you ever noticed that even among spiritual people, some awaken rapidly while others remain trapped in endless cycles? What if the difference isn't in their effort or dedication, but in the fundamental type of human they are? Ancient teachings declared something modern spirituality refuses to acknowledge. Humanity is not homogeneous or uniform. Three distinct natures coexist within the same reality, walking the same streets, breathing the same air. But only one of these three possesses the divine spark capable of piercing through the veil of simulation and accessing the monad directly. In this video, you will discover which type you are and why this changes absolutely everything. At the first level exist the instinctive humans, those who live entirely through senses and automatic reactions. At the second level, the psychic humans, who already perceive something beyond matter but still oscillate between light and illusion. And at the third level, the pneumatics, those who carry the intact spark of divine consciousness. They are rare, silent, often misunderstood by the masses. But they are the only ones capable of consciously accessing the monad and breaking the cycle of repetition. The modern era was treating all humans as spiritually equal. The ancients knew that each nature responds to different stimuli and frequencies. While some require external laws and structures, others respond only to the internal call of Source. The difference is not arrogance or elitism, it is structure, it is the constitution of consciousness itself. True liberation begins when you identify your fundamental nature. This is not about superiority, it is about responsibility. If you belong to the third type, you cannot live like the other two without betraying your essence. Your restlessness is not a defect or psychological problem. It is a signal that you were built for something beyond this reality. And by the end of this video, you will understand why only one of these three types can escape reality as it was programmed and designed. The key is not outside searching for external validation, it is in your internal constitution. The instinctive humans, living through automatic programming. The first category the ancient Gnostics identified were the hylics, the instinctive or material humans. These souls operate entirely through physical senses, automatic reactions, and externally programmed responses. They are not less valuable as consciousness, but they are structured differently at the foundational level. Their awareness is completely identified with matter and material existence. They experience reality only through what they can touch, taste, see, hear, and smell. The hylic human lives in pure survival mode constantly. Work, eat, reproduce, consume, sleep, repeat the cycle. They never question the nature of reality itself because questioning requires stepping outside the program. And the hylic consciousness cannot step outside because there is nothing within them that exists independently of the program. They are the program experiencing itself without awareness that anything else could possibly exist. This is why spiritual teachings do not resonate with them at all. You can place ancient wisdom directly in front of them, you can show them evidence of higher dimensions, you can explain the mechanics of consciousness expansion. And they will dismiss it immediately without consideration, not because they are stupid or closed-minded, but because their internal structure lacks the receiver necessary to process that frequency of information. Imagine trying to play a high-definition video file on a device that only processes basic image formats. The device is not broken or defective, it simply was not built with that capacity. The hylic human was not built to access the monad. Their consciousness is designed for material experience only. They are here to explore density, physicality, and separation without the complication of remembering unity. This is not judgment, this is observation of design. A fish does not access experiences outside water not because it is inferior, but because its structure serves a different function. The hylic serves the function of pure material exploration. Most of humanity falls into this first category, and that is exactly as it should be for their journey. They are not failed pneumatics or unconscious spiritual beings, they are complete expressions of material consciousness. But if you are watching this video and these words resonate, you are not in this first category. Something within you has always known there is more, and that knowing itself is evidence of a different structure. The psychic humans, caught between two worlds. The second category the Gnostics called psychics, the humans of soul or intermediate consciousness. These individuals have developed awareness beyond pure material existence, but they have not yet stabilized in direct connection with Source. The psychic human lives in constant oscillation between worlds. One moment they feel deeply connected to something higher, experiencing genuine spiritual insight and elevated states. The next moment they collapse back into material concerns, fear, and ego identification. This is not weakness or spiritual failure, this is the natural state of psychic consciousness. They exist in the middle realm between matter and spirit, capable of perceiving both but mastering neither completely. Most people who identify as spiritual seekers are operating from psychic consciousness level. They read the books, attend the workshops, practice the meditations, and experience genuine glimpses of higher reality. But they cannot maintain that connection consistently or permanently. External circumstances pull them back down repeatedly. A crisis hits and suddenly all spiritual practice disappears into survival mode. A relationship ends and they forget everything they learned about non-attachment. The psychic is aware that something more exists beyond this reality, but they still need external validation and external guidance constantly. They require teachers, techniques, ceremonies, and community to maintain even a flickering connection to higher frequency. This is because the psychic consciousness contains potential for both spiritual awakening and material entrapment. They are like a candle flame in strong wind, sometimes burning bright, sometimes barely surviving, always vulnerable to extinction. The psychic can access altered states and spiritual experiences, but they cannot access the monad directly and permanently. They can visit higher dimensions temporarily through practice and discipline, but they always return to baseline material consciousness eventually. Why does this limitation exist in their structure? Because the psychic still operates primarily through belief rather than direct knowing. They believe in higher reality, they have faith in spiritual truth, but they do not possess the unshakable inner knowing that defines pneumatic consciousness. The difference between belief and knowing is everything. Belief requires maintenance, reinforcement, and protection from doubt. Knowing exists independent of external circumstances or internal states. You can believe the sky is blue, but you know you are conscious right now. The psychic believes in the monad, seeks the monad, hopes to reach the monad. But believing in something and being able to directly access it are two completely different levels of consciousness structure. Most spiritual paths operate at the psychic level, offering techniques for temporary access but not permanent integration. If you find yourself constantly seeking the next teaching or the next breakthrough, oscillating between spiritual highs and material crashes, you may be operating from psychic consciousness. And that is perfectly valid for where you are in your evolution, but it is not the final. The pneumatic humans, carriers of the divine spark. The third and rarest category are the pneumatics, those who carry the divine spark intact within their consciousness. These are not more evolved humans or spiritually superior beings, they are fundamentally different in their internal structure and constitution. The pneumatic was never fully asleep in material reality. Even as a child, they knew something was profoundly wrong with consensus reality. They looked at how other people operated and felt like an alien observing a foreign species, not with judgment but with genuine confusion about why everyone accepted the program. The pneumatic does not seek spiritual awakening, they seek to understand why they were always awake in a world that seems designed to keep everyone asleep. Their journey is not about finding the divine spark, it is about remembering they never lost it. This creates a unique problem that the other two types never face. The Hylic never questions because they cannot perceive beyond matter. The psychic questions but finds temporary answers in spiritual teachings and practices. But the pneumatic questions everything constantly because nothing external ever fully satisfies the internal knowing. The pneumatic can access the monad not through technique or practice, but through recognition of what they have always been. The connection is not established, it is remembered. The pathway is not built, it is cleared of the debris that obscured it. This is why traditional spiritual paths often fail pneumatics completely. They are given maps to find something they already possess. They are taught techniques to achieve states they naturally inhabit. They are told to seek outside what can only be found by looking within. The pneumatic's journey is one of unlearning rather than learning, of removing false identity rather than building spiritual identity, of stripping away everything that is not the monad until only the monad remains in direct conscious experience. But here is the critical piece most teachings leave out. Being pneumatic does not automatically mean you are accessing the monad consciously right now. Many pneumatics spend decades or entire lifetimes identified with the psychic level, seeking what they already possess. The difference is that when the pneumatic finally stops seeking and simply recognizes their true nature, the access to monad is immediate, permanent, and unshakable. Not because they achieved something, but because they stopped pretending to be something they are not. The pneumatic does not escape reality by transcending it or rising above it. They escape by recognizing that the reality everyone else accepts as solid and real is actually a programmed simulation with no power over consciousness that remembers its source. Why only pneumatics can escape the simulation? Now we reach the core question. Why can only the pneumatic consciousness access the monad and escape reality? The answer lies in understanding what the monad actually is and what escape actually means in this context. The monad is not a place you travel to or a state you achieve. The monad is the singular source consciousness from which all existence emanates and to which all consciousness ultimately returns. It is not separate from you, it is the deepest truth of what you are beneath all layers of identity. The Heilig cannot access the monad because their consciousness is entirely constructed from and identified with material reality. They are expressions of the simulation experiencing itself, with no internal component that exists independently of the program. Asking a Heilig to access the monad is like asking a video game character to access the consciousness of the programmer. The character exists only within the game code, with no existence or awareness outside that constructed reality. The psychic can sense the monad, can believe in the monad, can even experience temporary states of unity with Source. But they cannot maintain permanent conscious access because their consciousness still oscillates between source and separation. Think of it like a radio receiver with an unstable frequency lock. Sometimes it perfectly receives the station signal, sometimes it drifts into static and interference, always requiring constant adjustment to maintain the connection. But the pneumatic consciousness is fundamentally different in structure. The divine spark within them is not a potential to be developed or a connection to be established through practice. It is an eternal component of their consciousness that was never actually separated from Source. The pneumatic experiences the illusion of separation. They temporarily forget their true nature during incarnation, but the connection to monad remains intact beneath the forgetting. Access is not built, it is remembered and consciously recognized. This is why only pneumatics can truly escape the simulation. Escape does not mean physically leaving Earth or dying to exit the matrix. Escape means conscious recognition that you were never actually trapped because the part of you that is real exists beyond all simulations and programs. When the pneumatic recognizes their true nature as monad consciousness temporarily experiencing limitation through material form, the simulation loses all power over them. They remain in physical reality but operate from a completely different frequency and awareness. They are in the world but not of the world, as ancient teachings describe this state. They participate in material reality without being bound by its rules, laws, and limitations at the consciousness level. This is not spiritual bypassing or dissociation from reality. This is operating from the awareness that consciousness itself is primary and matter is secondary, derivative, and ultimately malleable to consciousness that remembers its source nature. Identifying your type and what comes next. The question now is, which type are you actually? And more importantly, what do you do with this information once you understand your fundamental nature and structure? This is where ancient knowledge becomes practical application. If you are Heilig consciousness, this video will not resonate at all. You will have stopped watching long ago because nothing here connects with your operational frequency. And that is perfectly appropriate for your current journey and experience. If you are psychic consciousness, this information will fascinate you. You will want to study it, integrate it into your spiritual practice, perhaps use it as a framework for understanding your oscillating experiences. But eventually you will move on to the next teaching, the next breakthrough, the next technique. But if you are pneumatic consciousness, something different is happening right now. These words are not teaching you something new, they are confirming something you have always known but could never articulate. You are not learning, you are remembering through recognition. The pneumatic path from this point is clear but not easy. You must stop seeking what you already possess. You must stop trying to achieve states you naturally inhabit. You must stop looking outside for validation of the knowing that exists inside. This requires radical honesty about where you are actually operating from. Many pneumatics remain stuck at the psychic level for lifetimes because they are identified with the seeking itself. The search becomes comfortable, the spiritual identity becomes another trap. True access to monad requires complete surrender of seeking, complete release of spiritual identity and achievement, complete recognition that the one who seeks and the one who is sought are the same consciousness playing a game of temporary separation. Practical steps for pneumatic consciousness. Stop consuming endless spiritual content and start sitting in silence with what you already know. Stop looking for the next teacher and start listening to the internal knowing that never lies. Stop trying to fix or improve yourself and start recognizing your original nature was never broken. This is not about becoming worthy of monad access, it is about recognizing you were always worthy because you are monad experiencing temporary limitation. The access does not need to be earned, built, or achieved. It needs to be remembered, recognized, and consciously claimed as your birthright. When this recognition stabilizes, reality shifts fundamentally. Not because reality changes, but because your relationship to reality transforms completely. You remain in the physical world but operate from consciousness that knows itself as source temporarily wearing a material costume. This is the escape the ancient teachings pointed toward. Not leaving Earth, not dying to exit the simulation, but recognizing consciously that the real you was never trapped because consciousness itself exists beyond all programs and constructs. You now understand humanity's three consciousness types. Hylics live through material senses only, never questioning reality. Psychics perceive beyond matter but oscillate between connection and separation. Pneumatics carry the divine spark, capable of direct monad access. Only pneumatics escape the simulation through recognition, not achievement. The key is stopping the search and remembering your source nature. Access to monad is not earned, it is recognized. When you remember what you truly are, the program loses all power. You are not here to find yourself, you are here to remember yourself. If these words resonated deeply, comment, "I am pneumatic," below. Your declaration anchors this recognition in physical reality. Share this with anyone who has always felt fundamentally different. They may be pneumatic consciousness awaiting this language. Subscribe for more teachings about monad access and pneumatic awakening. You did not find this video accidentally. Your consciousness drew this information at the exact moment you were ready. Stop seeking, start recognizing, claim your birthright as monad consciousness. The search is over, the recognition begins now. Welcome home to what you have always been.